Good morning from Charleston, South Carolina. Would like to show you what a floating dock looks like when it's sitting on top of the ground. So here I'm walking on a floating dock downhill because it's low tide, and we're going down to where the dock is actually in the water and floating. In the high tide situation, the dock I'm walking on that's hard to ground right now will of course be floating at that time. Looking off to my right, you can see this Pluff mud. This is what the bottom looks like in North Carolina, South Carolina, and in Georgia. You can see if you've got water up in the weeds, it's high tide. Anytime that you've got all this Pluff mud showing, it's low tide. And then of course, if you run your boat aground, not only is it aground, but it's stuck in the mud. So make sure that you watch your tides, you watch your depth gauge on the boat, and you keep the boat in the channel and not in the Pluff mud. Swinging back to the left again, you can see all of these floating docks near and far. And then back over to my left-hand side, more and more and more and more floating docks with boats. But you can see this Pluff mud again. So beware the tide, don't get your boat stuck. And I don't have to say it, but just in case you're thinking it, you cannot get out and push the boat off because you'll sink down to your knees, maybe even down to your waist in this Pluff mud. And then finally coming back to the dock, I don't think you can appreciate it here on the video, but you can see how it rises up where that floating dock is not floating, but it's sitting on the Pluff mud. If you want to learn more about cruising, trip planning, high tides and low tides, and don't forget, when the tide comes in or goes back out, when it floods and ebbs, you also have current associated with that tidal movement. If you have more questions, ask Captain Chris.